Welcome once again. Now let's take you through the newspapers this morning, share with you the big stories. We're kicking off on the Nation newspapers. The big one you can see on your screen there says, Emefiele, ex-minister, 14 others indicted in CBN Probe. And like I said, we would like to see where this leads. Sensational news stories like this, are interesting for, like they say, beer parlor conversations, and for, everybody's going to, gist about this in offices and in their homes and, amongst family and friends. Today we'll talk about all of this. But Nigerians do not want it to end with just big, news headlines. We would like to see that a proper investigation has been carried out. That if he is found guilty of misappropriation of funds, if he is found guilty of maybe, not going through the right processes to invest Nigeria's money, even if he hasn't stolen it, whatever it is that is the crime, that he of course, is made to, pay according to what the law says, according to what the Criminal Justice Act says. Nobody cares about these stories anymore. If you're not going to actually find him guilty at some point, or at least, or find him innocent at some point after a proper investigation. The fight against corruption is not fought on, newspaper headlines. Neither is it fought, with these sensational stories. There's actual action that needs to come into play. And if you ask yourselves as a Nigerian, in the last 10 years, how much improvement have we really, really gotten with regards to fighting corruption? Nobody would, beat their chest and say, oh, we've done better, or we've improved in the last 10 years. We really haven't. We've maybe arrested a handful of people. EFCC has picked up a few, in quote, Yahoo boys. But that's not the fight against corruption, if we're being honest. Also in the Nation this morning, 11 Supreme Court justices designate may be sworn in next week. CBN, lawmakers warn POS agents, and that's with regards to cash crunch. We're not sure exactly who to blame for this recent scarcity of naira notes. Godwin Emefiele is no longer there. President Buhari is no longer there. So are we right to blame the current CBN governor, Yemi Cardoso, and President Bola Tinubu for the scarcity of the naira? Or is there some other person that would like to take this blame? Who exactly are we going to blame for the scarcity of the naira? If we blame Godwin Emefiele for the last one, are we right to blame Yemi Cardoso for this one? I think we are. Banks, farmers linked to shortage. Okay. Tinubu will make Nigeria safe, Minister assures Ekiti workers to get 15,000 naira wage award for 6 months. Also on the Nation newspapers this morning, passengers overwhelm free interstate Yuletide train service, as we expected. Government says petrol production begins next week at Port Harcourt Refinery, and of course then NPC Limited completes mechanical rehabilitation. Dangote gets another 1 million barrels of crude. Congratulations to the people of River State and of course to Nigeria. We hope that this actually works, and we slowly start to revive Nigeria's refineries. All right, these are the big stories. Of course, riders to the Emefiele story says investigators' report shows massive plunder of Apex Bank, 31.78 billion naira paid to print new naira notes, 543 million pounds fixed in British Bank, 1.62 trillion naira COVID-19 funds unaccounted for. And all of these things that we mentioned, just like Olive had said earlier, cannot just be Godwin Emefiele. It's a good thing that the story says 14 others have been indicted. It's not just one person who stole all these funds. It would be nice that we also get the names of these 14 other people so that we know exactly what we're dealing with. And of course, if they're going to be charged, let them all be charged with these crimes. That's what we have on the Nation newspapers this morning. Let's go to some other newspaper.
Away from the Nation newspaper, on the Daily Independent newspaper this morning, NNPC attains mechanical completion of Port Harcourt Refinery. What does mechanical completion mean?
So from what the story says, there are two segments of the rehabilitation. There's one of them that, of course, is going to produces 60,000 barrels per day capacity. Then the second one of 150,000 barrels per day capacity. I think what they currently have up and running, according to what they're saying, is the 60,000 barrels per day capacity. The other one is still being worked on. But yes, I don't know what exactly, of course, the engineers will explain better what they mean by mechanical completion. But I guess that it means that we can now refine crude. I want to believe that.
They promised that the Port Harcourt Refinery will be up and running by December. So that'd be some good news to, usher us into the festive season. Yes. We hope we can get more information of that.
Yes.
On that.
But something to quickly mention also, it says they achieves flare startup of refineries Area 5 plant. We would need clarity, and we're going to have an oil, and gas expert join us to explain exactly what these things mean. But Nigeria just got back from COP28, and we're still gas flaring. Just want to quickly point that out. That the pictures that showed that the Port Harcourt refinery is back up and running was a picture of a big fire burning into the sky. Of course, we're back, gas flaring. And I don't know how much of our COP28 commitments, are being shaken with us still, burning, those huge carbon emissions into the sky with our refineries.
Well, I don't know how that is going to happen. If we're talking about transition to net zero, it will be a long time for Nigeria because we're very, very dependent on fossil. Anyway, let's still look at another sub-story there. Says Dangote Refinery gets second 1 million barrels of crude. Federal government plans to increase flying hours to sunset airports for Yuletide. That's on page 7. Still on the front page, Supreme Court reserves judgment in Yusuf Gawuna tussle for Kano gubernatorial elections. Senate confirms 11 Supreme Court justices on page 6. And NEC raises committees on economic affairs, crude oil theft and management. Angola leaves OPEC. Wow. Okay, that's one to look at and to read into on page 29. Tinubu arrives in Lagos for Christmas. Merry Christmas to Tinubu. We hope that he will share small thing for the girls. Osarogie, are you hoping that you run into
Well, if you're one of the climate buddies, you can stop by. or
I'm not around, please. I'm not there. All right, still on the front page, still talking about the Yuletide. Governor Nwifuru approves 100,000 naira each for workers. I believe that in Rivers State we also had Governor Fubara do some approvals for civil servants, because of the Yuletide. Reps summon ex-aviation minister Sirika over Nigeria air projects. Like my friends would say, good morning to the House of Reps. They are finally summoning Sirika over Nigeria air projects. Like you will say as well, we don't care about the sensational news.
Yeah.
Summon him. After summoning him, will he appear? After appearing, what investigation is being done? All the investigation that has been done on social media by journalists, will they make use of the data that has been gotten? Will he go to court? Will he come and explain? Would he be made? I mean, he's been lounging since Nigeria Air. First of all, after brazenly lying to the Nigerian people about the Nigerian Air project, I
mean, maybe not necessarily lying, but
fraudulently misleading. Is that a
misleading statements here and there? That
fraudulently misleading Nigerians, and they did a lot of eye service for the Buhari administration to ensure that they got the Nigerian Air up and running, just as Buhari administration was coming to an end. All right, still on the front page of the Daily Independent, federal government unveils transport companies participating in Tinubu's 50% rebate. So just to mention, we did talk about the federal government giving a 50% discount in transportation starting from, that was 2 days ago, I believe, up until the first week in January, 4th of January, to mention that not all transport companies are involved. So please don't enter a bus going from Obalende to Aja and tell the conductor that government has reduced transportation by 50%. There is freedom of speech, but freedom after the speech we cannot guarantee. What we're saying is there are companies that have been specified to be involved. We have like God is Good Motors and a number of all these companies. So please find out what companies are involved, and it's mainly for interstate travel, right? Because we know a number of people will be traveling home for the Yuletide. And final story, Rivers crisis. PDP blasts Lamido over utterances capable of dragging party down. And that's all that we have this morning on the front page of the Daily Independent.
All right, away from the Daily Independent, our next paper this morning is the Guardian newspapers, what we can find here. Big one there, of course, Nigeria, the making of a human rights abuse haven. That's not a very good story. It's actually a really sad one. It says there, I think it might be great that you pick up a copy of The Guardian and see exactly what that is referring to. And of course, you remember to tweet at us this morning at News Central TV. Let's have your thoughts on any of these stories that get your attention. Supreme Court reserves judgment in Kano gubernatorial case. Additional wins of Bafemile Awolowo Leadership Prize. Again, NBS pegs unemployment rate at 4.2% amid business closure. Tinubu's wife launches 950 million naira support scheme for elderly. Passengers stranded as 50% transportation rebate scheme stalls. And also, reps consider semester-based fees for tertiary institutions. House summons minister and CBN over limited withdrawals from banks and ATMs. Whose shame should this be, and who really should be held responsible for, once again, the scarcity of the naira? And of course, is the Nigerian government really even going to address its citizens and let them know the reasons that we're experiencing naira scarcity? Or are we going to act like it's just a normal day at work, and go home?
Well,
who should be held responsible? Because if this was a company, if this was a production company, FMCG, company or something, and for some reason there's a particular ingredient that is just not available for production of, this thing that they, if it's a cereal company, right? They produce cereals, breakfast cereals, for example. And then there is, for some reason, a particular ingredient, maybe corn, that is just not available for the production of this cereal. And this goes on for weeks. Somebody would be questioned. Somebody would be, summoned to, answer, why exactly we don't have this, because we're not able to produce cereal. And production capacity has gone, or quality of our cereal has reduced drastically because this particular product is not there. Somebody would question. So why don't we have the same thing when the official Nigerian currency is not available for Nigerians to use? Who do we blame? Are we going to blame banks for hoarding the currency? Are we going to blame the CBN?
I think it's a blame that spreads across the board, right? CBN primarily because they're the parent body when it comes to talking finance. The banks will tell you that they don't have enough money because they cannot. You are not expected to give out what you do not have. A number of times when we're complaining of the naira scarcity, a number of those banks would say CBN is not giving us money. So which money are we supposed to give to you?
Well, yes.
So on the one hand, that's the bank's own. CBN then has, so I would say fundamentally CBN has a lot of questioning and explanation to do. If CBN can categorically say we have given enough money to these banks, then these banks not giving out monies will then be reprimanded. There will be some punitive measures issued against the bank.
And that's why it has to come from somewhere. Somebody, first of all, needs to raise the question to the CBN governor and say, Oga, we're hearing that there's no naira across the country. This is going for too long. It's going for 2 weeks. Is it that you're not releasing naira? We do have a scarcity of naira notes. Then CBN governor can say, no, CBN has been giving money to the banks.
So which banks and banks are doing it? Let's see. Let's start from there.
But because we don't have, and I repeatedly say this, that it seems like we run a country where there's no punitive measures of failure.
Apart from speeches, because every time they're releasing one press statement or the other.
And if you have a country that runs the same way like a company would run and would punish you for failing in your responsibility, for realizing that the goals that have been set, for you as the head of any MDA or a government agency, you've not been able to meet those goals, you are punished for it, then maybe people would sit up. But because we don't have that, that's why we can have a country where there's no naira. I mean, I don't know if this is, I don't know that it's happened in any other country. That even countries that have worse economies than Nigeria, you would never hear that what do you mean by there's no naira? Anyway.
Maybe there's dollar.
Anyway, these are the stories that we can find on the Guardian newspapers. I think we can throw in one more newspaper before we go. But yes, that's it on the Punch this morning.
Emefiele, of course, has operated 593 illegal US, UK, China accounts, according to a CBN investigator. Foreign accounts operated without board's approval. 26 trillion naira ways and means fraud moved. We also have Emefiele, Buhari's aide, 12 CBN directors to face trial. Oh, wow. 2 detained over $6.23 million theft. Did you see that? Emefiele, Buhari's aide, and 12 CBN directors are going to face trial. All right, we'll wait and see. Port Harcourt Refinery to process 60,000 barrels daily after repairs. Still on the front page, we have at the top of the paper, VP governors raise panel on crude oil theft and economy. 11 billion naira judgments, PNID loses bid to appeal Nigeria's victory. Great news for Nigeria, I would say. Fantastic news. Because imagine that we had to still be paying this with all the challenges that we're facing as a country. So yeah, PNID has lost the bid to appeal Nigeria's victory. Tinubu threatened Fubara to sign resolution, ex-commissioner alleges. Did Fubara looks like he was under anyway, we wouldn't know the fine lines, we won't know the details. But this ex-commissioner alleges that it was fraud. He was threatened to sign the resolution.
It's an allegation.
Well,
but I'm guessing that's his own analysis of the Sim Fubara situation.
Kaduna tops as PSC shortlists 416,274 police job. Passengers storm train stations, interstate luxury buses, and cut fares. And, wow, these passengers, okay. Of course, but this is what we expected when we talked about the cutting of 50% in transportation. We knew that the trains were going to be overburdened.
Yes.
Right. And on the front page, the final story, Nigerians divided as bishops kick against blessing same-sex marriage. That's one of the stories that we had taken this morning as well. And we, of course, look forward to being able to look at that. We also have one more paper, the This Nigeria newspaper, on the front page of the This Nigeria. That's very important stories, that need to be taken. But let's quickly just banter on the issue with the same-sex marriage. And my concern with that, is exactly how, there are different reactions to this. And the Catholic faith, the Christian faith, it seems like there might be a lot of confusion concerning what is acceptable and what is not acceptable.
Very true. But just to quickly share some of the stories on this Nigeria newspapers this morning. It says Nigeria's unemployment rate rises to 4.2% in quarter 2, 2023, says the NBS. If you remember a couple of months ago, sometime last year, the NBS somehow recalibrated the way that Nigeria's unemployment rate is measured. And of course, it brought it down to 4.2%. It says 88% of employed Nigerians primarily self-employed, only 12% engaged as employees. And also on this Nigeria newspapers, FCT Development Control approves 1,422 building plans in 2023. Emefiele, once again, special investigator submits damning report to the president, validates this Nigeria exclusive story on the 20th of November. It's interesting. And of course, it says there, there's a picture also. I wish you could share that on the screen. There's a picture of the report, or the This Nigeria report, that they're talking about. Banks and industry chiefs panic as report on Emefiele is ready for submission to president. Yes, you can see there right on the screen. That was the initial report done by This Nigeria that, of course, has been validated now with this special investigator's report.
On the 20th of November.
Yes. All right. Senate confirms 11 Supreme Court justices' appointments, and also mechanical work on Port Harcourt Refinery completed to begin production after festive season, says the minister. And this is a very, very shocking story. And this does not represent the place where I'm from. We completely denounce these. We completely denounce these miscreants. We do not know where they are from. I'm thinking that they're from out of town. They do not come from those states. And wow. But it says that miscreants rob a dead man in Benin City. All right. These are the stories on This Nigeria this morning and the stories that we have in the newspapers.